trade. So that's ultimately where I'll get you to. But I want to show you kind of an outline of what I think trading is about. And it's kind of interesting, the acronym that I've come up with for this, you guys will appreciate. Is RATS, R-A-T-S, which probably a lot of you have said after having some of your trades. Oops, that doesn't work. R-A-T-S. And what that really gets down to is rules, attitude, techniques, and systems. Now, there are some absolute rules that you need to have, and I think it's tremendously important you have an attitude about trading, and you need some techniques of trading, and you need some systems of trading. And if you have that, then I think you can become a complete trader. But if you just have some basic rules but the wrong attitude, or a great attitude, the right attitude, but no techniques or systems or strategies, well, you're going to be in problem. So to be a complete trader, which is what I'd like to be able to get you to become, I think this is what you're really trying to get to. You need to have a sense of rules. There are some basic rules to this business of speculation, and I tell you this, they're like gravity. If you violate them, you're dead. You're not going to make it. I don't care how much money you have, how smart you have, or smart you are. You're not going to make it if you violate some basic rules. So I want to go over the basic rules first. Let's see, we better blacken this out. Here are the basic rules, and there's not a whole lot of them. I really only found 4 of them. You must limit losses, period. That's the first rule of the game. You absolutely must learn to limit your losses. I have seen people blown out in this marketplace that should never have been blown out, thanks Lee very much, for violating that one rule. They didn't use stops. Oh, they're going to get my stop. Have any of you ever felt that way? They're coming after your stop? Have any of you had that sense? Yeah, you paranoid people, you. Yeah, I can't believe it. You think they're really going to go out after your stop? There's no way they're going to go after your stop. You're so paranoid, you're so psychologically aberrated about that. I know that because they're coming after my stop. The truth is, as Jake said last night, for those of you that weren't here, Jake talked about where I had an order to buy 6,000 bonds, and it missed by 1 tick, not going to my stop. The one nice thing about doing commodity timing, my advisory service, which is, I don't know, 30-some years of this now, I have quite a few subscribers. And it is not unusual to see the price go within 1 or 2 ticks of our stop. But we've got subscribers all over the world that have stops there. So this notion of they're going to get you, therefore I'm not going to use any protection, is like stupid. It's the stupidest, dumbest thing you could do is not to use a stop. Because there's an interesting thing about your personality, my personality. It's the damnedest thing, and I don't really totally understand it. But you know what? We love to hold on to losers, and we can't stand to hold on to a winner. It's the greatest psychological problem of trading. You'll pitch a winner in a heartbeat, and you'll hold on to a loser forever. Now, isn't that strange? I mean, people say, oh, yeah, I do that, don't I? Once I had that insight into myself, that's what I've done most of my life, too. And I think there's a reason why, because as humans, we move towards pleasure and away from pain. If you have a losing position, you've got some pain, but our optimism, and only optimists ultimately end up trading, the optimism in it says, well, if I hold it a little longer, maybe I'll get out. So you're seeking pleasure by holding on to a losing trade. And if you have a winning trade, hey, the pleasure is get out of it. And if you don't get out and it goes down, then you're painful. So there's a real pain-pleasure thing going on that I think you need to seriously analyze in yourself so you can learn to hold on to the winning trades and get out of the losing trades. And getting out of the losing trades means saying, I'm only going to lose so much money on a trade. That's it, period. Maybe you're going to use a chart point. Maybe you're going to use a moving average or a WD, uppercase, outer gun, Mongolian, Gan, flying line in the sky or something. It doesn't matter what you use. You just got to use stops. As I've said, the major losses I've had in my life, and I've had more than my share, I'll tell you, they all came at a time when I violated 2 rules. One, I didn't use stops, because I always thought it would come back. Did you ever have that feeling? Yeah, right. Did it? No. People are now experiencing that in the stock market. So if you have that protection, now this is a neat thing because psychologically, if you have a stop, you shouldn't have any fear. How many people are fearful of trading? Yeah, you should be. It's a great attitude to have. But if you know I can only lose $1,200 on a trade, you either accepted that before you started the trade or you didn't. You say, yeah, I can use $1,200. You know what? It doesn't matter if you buy a new high in the market or a new low in the market or because there's a full moon outside in the skies. It doesn't matter. Because you know that you have that shield to say I can only lose X number of dollars. That's it. My risk is always the same. It doesn't matter if stochastics is above or below, or nothing matters because you can only lose so much. Now knowing that, I feel really comfortable as a trader, saying, hey, I can only risk, this is my risk. So I could take this trade. I'm saying, am I willing to lose this much money? Yeah, I am, okay. So then I can take the trade and I have a much clearer mental state about that trade because my risk is totally limited. Within some slippage, I don't know if you people ever get slippage or not, I've been known to. But with that exception, that's always there for you. So that stops not only protect your capital, but they protect your state of mind. And they allow you to become a warrior. They allow you to step in and say, hey, I can trade now because I've already limited my loss. So the first rule of trading is you've got to limit your loss. The second is you've got to let your profits run. Now, how do you let profits run? This is an interesting point. As I mentioned earlier, most of us don't have the psychological wherewithal to let profits run. There's only one thing that causes profits to get big, and that's time. The only one way anybody in this room grew up, it took a few years. The only one way that a crop ever matures and gets to the point you can harvest it, time. So we need time in our trades. That's why I think that people are trying to come in and out every 2 or 3 or 4 minutes on a 1-minute chart are totally destined to failure. The only question is how soon will it occur? Because they don't give it any time. Now, if you don't give a market any time, your average profit per trade is very small. And what ultimately will happen, it's a game of math. If your average gain in the S&P is, say, 100 points, or 200 points, $500, looks like a pretty big deal. But when those losses come, since we like to hold on to losses, and since they catch us by surprise, and since there's slippage, our average loss is maybe 1.5 times our average win, or 2 times. So you're like that little frog in the well. You jump up 9 steps, you got 9 winning trades, and then comes the one losing trade, boom, you're down 13 steps in the well. Because the mathematics that you've set up just destine yourself for failure. You're taking small profits, and your losses will be larger than you want them to be, regardless of what system you use. Your losses will always be larger than you want. So the way you get a larger profit is to hold for time, period. The longer that you can hold a trade for, if it's a winning trade, obviously the more money you'll make. So you have to steel your mind to say, I'm going to hold this trade for some time, and if you do that, you'll make a lot more money. When Jake and I do the real-time trading seminar, which we'll do tomorrow and Monday, you'll see my trades, and Jake's trades too, are not in and out in 2 minutes. In my case, I may hold a trade for a couple days, because I want to give as much time as I can for that position to grow as possible, and that's how I can make money on a short-term basis. It's a question of time, and people are so wrapped up into the technical aspects of the market, the moving averages or whatever, that they forget that basic reason of trading is to make money, and that means you've got to give these positions time to mature. So basic rule number 2 is we're going to give our trades time. Third one is you must never plunge, ever. I know that one real well. Growing up in Montana, being a bit of a kamikaze cowboy, we're kind of wild when we grow up in Montana and continue to live our lives that way most of the time. That's why I ended up in jail in Saudi Arabia, I guess. But I felt a lot more comfortable in jail in Saudi Arabia, where the penalty for taking a picture of a woman is to end up jail for 18 years, than I do in a position in the market without a stop. Because you really ultimately don't have any control over the markets. I had a little control when I was in jail in Saudi Arabia. I had a little control when I was in jail in Egypt on another archaeological dig. That was kind of funny. We're doing an archaeological dig. This one we got permission for. We don't have bogus documents. An Egyptian Navy, which is one boat, a rowboat, boards our boat and says, what are you doing here? And we said, well, we're doing an archaeological dive here in the ocean looking for, oh, okay, well, where's your permission? Well, we have right here a letter from the Minister of Antiquities. Oh, this guy didn't know we had the letter. Now, he's really upset because we're kind of like, you know, we're on his turf and he doesn't know we're supposed to be there. And he looks at this letter and looks at this letter and says, this letter is not dated today. This is illegal what you're doing. It had been dated a month earlier, the permission to do it. So here we go again to jail. But I felt comfortable there because I had some control. Not a lot, but some. But when you're in pork bellies, you don't have any control. You have no control over the market. You're in a position, the only control you have is the stop and how much of a position you put on. It's the only control you have over the market. You have no control. And I've tried mind control on the markets. I've tried prayer. I tried meditation. I tried everything you can think of to beat this business. None of that stuff works. It makes sense that it wouldn't work. So only control is the stops and not overtrading. You can overtrade in two ways. You might want to take note of this. You can overtrade by either having too many contracts or trading too frequently. Overtrading is a sense of having too many contracts or trading too frequently. And there's a great reason you'll want to trade too frequently because you're connected to a broker on the other end of the phone. And the broker, bless his or her heart, really, I think, genuinely wants to help you. I really do believe that in most instances. Not all, but certainly the majority. But they're motivated by commissions, and they've got quote screens and everything in front of them. They see all this stuff happening. They got 15 hotlines they're listening to. So their nature is to sell. That's what their job is. So there's a great incentive to overtrade too frequently. Your problem is probably going to be to have on too many positions. So let me give you a basic rule. How big should your position be? Well, I can give you some math on that works quite well. You need to determine how much money you want to risk. Let's say that I have a trading account of $100,000 just for sake of argument. What I need to know, and Ralph Vince has done some great work on this. I don't know if Ralph is still here. You've got to get in touch with Ralph. If I've got $100,000 in my account, as a trader, I need to figure out how much of that am I willing to risk on this trade. Gentleman over here might say, hey, you know, I'm a gutsy guy. I'll risk 20% of my money. Someone over here may risk 30% on one trade. Somebody else may say 5%. But you need to determine your risk factor, how risk-oriented you are, how much of that bankroll you're willing to risk. Generally speaking, an aggressive strategy is about 10 to 12%. Generally speaking. 20% last year when my daughter Michelle traded a $10,000 account to $110,000 in the Robbins World Cup Trading Championship, she traded at 20%. When I won 10 years prior to that, the Robbins World Cup Trading Championship, taking $10,000 to $1.1 million, it's real trading for both of us, I did that at trading at about 60%, which is why the equity high was $2.2 million on the $10,000, and it went down to $700,000 and came back to $1.1 million. That's called an equity dip. Called living through hell, too. So, you know, that was a little large, actually, of an equity dip. And one thing I learned from that experience is that you probably have to determine something about whatever your risk is. And it took really Ryan Jones and Ralph Vince to come up with a percentage of risk that you're willing to risk on any given trade. And now you know that your largest loss, since we're going to use stops, I can't lose more than, say, $1,000 a trade. Because I'm going to use, I mean, maybe with slippage, but generally speaking, whatever your stop is, I'm not going to lose more than, we'll use just a number of $1,000 on any given trade. So I say, well, if I'm only going to lose $1,000 on a trade, and I don't want to risk more than, say, 10% of my money, my risk factor on this account is $10,000. And since I'm only going to risk $1,000 on a contract, guess what? I get to trade 10 contracts. Now, somebody else who's a little more gutsy may say, well, I'm going to risk $20,000 divided by 1,000. That person can risk 20 contracts, or can take 20 contracts in the trade. Or somebody who says, I only want to risk 5% of my money, will have 5,000 divided by 1, and that person is going to trade 5 contracts. Or perhaps another person says, $1,000 stop's pretty big for me, so they're going to use a $500 stop. So you can see the math of it. But the game is account balance, risk percent, divided by loss, largest loss, and that tells you how many contracts to trade. That is the most singularly important thing that I can tell you today. I cannot tell you anything more important than what I've just told you. That's what allowed me last year, that formula, to take $50,000 to $1 million in real-time trading. That's what did it. It wasn't the brilliance of the system or me, it was the money management. Because as you make more money, you'll have more contracts. As you start to lose money, you'll cut back your contract. The best formula I've been able to find. It will be aggressive to help you exponentiate your growth, and it'll cut back about right. I don't know what the ultimate best answer to money management is, and this is just the best that I've been able to find. And it's simple to follow, it's easy to do, and it can really grow an account. Michelle's account from 10,000 to 110, 50,000 to $1 million, a little over $1 million, because of the money management. But most people really say, oh, well, I'm going to take 5 contracts on this, and 2 on this, and 1 on that. You have no sense of what you're doing managing your money. And again, since that's the only control factor you have, that's what you should focus more attention on. Once I started using these money management techniques, what I noticed was the most immediate thing is the wild gyrations that I used to go through stopped. Just like that. I don't know if any of you, has anybody here had those wild gyrations? Or are you all normal people? Yeah, you have, okay. Yeah. The money management stops it. It just like, boom, knocks that bad stuff out of your life. So I don't care what system you get. If you took all these systems that are here and all the great minds that are here and put them together and have the ultimate system of the world, you'd still have to have money management. You still have to have that or you'll blow up. So that's our next rule, that we must have money management, and the money management is going to, so we will not plunge. That's what it wants to do, because in our heart, we all read Jesse Livermore's book, and we all want to be a swashbuckler, speculator king, and we all want to make $1 million overnight. Well, some of you want to do it quicker than that. But that gets us to plunge too much, to overstay our case, and invariably, whatever trade you believe is the best trade, when you really know you got the all-time winning trade, would you call me so I can take the other side of the trade? Because one of the best rules I know is when you feel really like you got the trade, that's the trade that's a loser. The trade that feels the most comfortable is the one that's most often the biggest loss you're going to have. I don't know how that works, but I've seen that on my hotlines over the years, that whatever trades don't work out are the ones that people feel comfortable trading. And the ones that do work out, they're scared to death of. So we don't even put winning trades on the hotline anymore because they're not going to take them. That's just a joke. If it feels comfortable, it's probably wrong. I don't know how many times I've had signals to do things, and I just am so scared to do it, even still now, with money management, with stops, with knowing what little I know about the market. I'm still frightened to do it. And boy, when I feel that feeling, that really motivates me to do the trade. And it's so hard to call up and say, sell 100 bonds at the market, because you're scared to death this one isn't going to work. But when I feel like, oh, I finally got it all figured out, invariably those are the ones that don't work. So hopefully that's some insight that'll give you about your own fear level. The more frightful you are, the better it's going to be for you. The other thing under you must never plunge ever in money management, I'd like to break one of the common rules of money management. How many people have heard this one? You should only trade with funds you can afford to lose. Have you ever heard that? Man, is that a lie? Well, is that misleading? You should only trade with funds you can't afford to lose. Now, if I can't afford to lose them, am I going to be more focused on that than the person says, oh, I can lose this money. This is just play money, you know. Whoa, that's a stupid thing to do. Because if you come into the market with the attitude of, well, this is just money, you know, if I lose it, it's okay. Well, it's not okay to lose money. That's not what this game is about. If your attitude is, this is money I can't afford to lose, let me tell you, you'd be a lot better trader than somebody who almost presupposes they're going to lose the money. So I think this is a serious game. You want to get as serious as you possibly can about it. The last rule is you must be consistent in your application of attitude techniques and systems, and most of us are not very consistent as traders. One day we do this, one day we're trading pork bellies, the next day we're trading corn, then we're trading the LIBOR, then we're trading the German Bund, and the next day we're trading a moving average system, and 5 days later we're trading something else. We shop around. We're playing pin the tail on the donkey, and the donkey keeps moving, which is the Tom DeMark analogy, a beautiful analogy. And we see, oh, that guy's really hot. I'm going to trade him for a while. As soon as that guy gets hot, he's going to get cold, right? And then you say, oh, look, this guy's doing really well over here. This system's doing well. You move over to that system, it blows up. So you're chasing disasters under the guise of chasing winners. You just have to do whatever you're going to do and be consistent in that approach. Now, there are two types of approaches you can make to trading the market, you might want to take a note of this. People usually think of long-term and short-term, but I would say that they are either market-specific or technique-specific. By that, in my case, I'm pretty market-specific. I only trade Treasury bonds, and occasionally, if I really want to wander astray into the dark of the night, I may trade the S&P. That's all that I do in my own trading.